Greetings, everybody. We are going to do more Brihat Samhita. And today we're going to cover 3 chapters, or most of 3 chapters. Because we have 2 fairly simple chapters just to go over real fast. Let's start. Yeah. Chapter 13 in Brihat Samhita, it's about the Big Dipper. Chapter 12, which we did yesterday, was about Canopus, the star Augustia, or the South Pole Star. Now we have the North Pole Star, basically, which is one of the stars in the Big Dipper. Now, this chapter is very simple. It simply names the 7 stars in there after the 7 famous sages created by Brahma at the beginning of creation. And then it simply says that if there's some kind of weird obstruction to one of these stars, then it affects the things that sage would symbolize. It's a real simple system. But the only other thing that's mentioned in that chapter, it talks about the certain kind of a yuga, which is like a century-long yuga. Which is called the Saptarishi Yuga, or the Saptarishi year. And I did research this a little bit to try to figure out how it's done. So in other words, they say that the Saptarishi passes through the Nakshatras at a rate of 1 nakshatra every 100 years. So it's not exactly analogous to precession of equinoxes, because that's 2,600 years, 26,000 years for the whole thing, not 2,700. So maybe somebody got something wrong somewhere and missed a decimal place. But still, I don't know. This calculation is not really well known to me, and I've never seen the software that does it. But just to wrap up the study of this chapter on how I think it's probably done, and I think I worked this out a little bit with Aishan from Bindu software, so I think it's correct. It has to do with, so in other words, you can't really have one star move in relationship to another star. So either you have to take the tropical version of one or the other. So if you take the tropical version of the Nakshatras, and then it will exactly equate to the precession of equinoxes. How the Big Dipper's 2 westernmost stars point. But that's not the case. They say that it should change a nakshatra every 100 years. So but they say, in the Puranas, they say that you should take the North Pole and make a line from the North Pole, bisect these 2 stars of the Big Dipper, which are the 2 westernmost stars. Algol, I forget the other one's name. Or maybe it's not Algol. I forget the 2 names of them. You should have it bisect those 2 lines, and then where that line points at the ecliptic, the sidereal nakshatra that it's in is the nakshatra for that century. So this seems to work at roughly 100, roughly the way it's supposed to work. Roughly it'll change its nakshatra every 100 years. As long as you take the North Pole is the actual North Pole, which will be affected by precession of equinoxes. But it's going to move at a greater speed because it's got this focal point of the Big Dipper stars, the way that it points, the way that the arrow points at the stars. All right, so that's chapter 13 of Brihat Samhita. It just briefly talks about Saptarishi, or the Big Dipper. Briefly mentions this idea that Saptarishi points at nakshatras, so I just tried to explain how you actually figure that out. If somebody who works software actually figures this out and puts it in their software, it would be really nice. And then it just says if there's an obstruction to one of these stars, or weirdness to one of these stars, then it affects the things symbolized by the sage. That's the name of that star is named after. Now the next chapter. Next chapter is called Kurma Vibhag, which means how you divide the earth like a turtle. The reason why it's like a turtle is because it's a circular division of the earth. So it looks like a turtle shell, the way the turtles have the lines come out from their shell and all that. So the Kurma Vibhag concept is all about what nakshatra symbolizes what part of the earth. So that if you have an evil effect or a good effect in a particular nakshatra, you can make a prediction about what part of the earth that will affect. It's an interesting system. Never seen it done before. Another very kind of oddly simple system. He's just going to say the nakshatras take up 13 1/3 degree of a circle. So starting from the east, starting with Krittika, if you draw a circle, like make the earth look like a circle, and the 13 1/3 degrees starting from the east, the first 13 1/3 degrees starting from due east is represented by Krittika, the next 13 1/3 is represented by Bharani, okay? And then you just go all the way around, you follow nakshatras around. Then he says, where should the center of the circle be? He should make it the middle of India. So either that's just a common cultural thing that people make this their own center, the center, or it could be because he's in the middle of India, so it would be the center would be focused on the astrologer. Don't know. Not more than that is not given. Then, so that's chapter 14. Chapter 13 just talks about the Big Dipper, where it points at the different centuries. Chapter 14 talks about the way of dividing the earth into a circle that corresponds to nakshatras. And then chapter 15. We finally get an interesting chapter. Good morning, Bardo. Hello, everybody. Dan Davis, Jimmy Angel. Chapter 15 is about nakshatras, finally. And it's finally pretty close to our modern astrology and the way we modernly do things. So what he does in chapter 15 is just say, if you're born with this nakshatra, then you're like this. Or really, he kind of says this is good for your career. And if you have that nakshatra, your career would be good with this. So it's really like the way we're used to astrology. Finally, we got kind of a familiar chapter. Here's a couple of questions. Billy Thompson says maybe it's a geographic approximation. This is totally an approximation. This is a complete approximation. And what he does actually, though, to make it less approximate, the reason why it's a whole chapter and not just a single statement is because he actually details this country, this province, this area fall in Krittika, this fall in Bharani, etc. And then Master something says, couldn't you use the circle as a zodiac wheel? You could also do that if you want. You could use this technique for that, but he doesn't. In fact, I don't think we have seen a single mention in 15 chapters. We haven't seen a single mention of a zodiac sign in Brihat Samhita. We have not heard a single thing about Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, but we hear constantly about nakshatras. So this gives you some idea about, even as recent as the 6th century, what astrology was actually like in India. What is that word? My eyes are bad and I don't know where my glasses are. We'll just call you Master K. Master K says, could every nakshatra be a 13.3 degree sign in the zodiac wheel? No, that's exactly how people mess it up. It's not. And people mess up lunar mansions in exactly the same way. It's a 13 1/3 degree section of the stellar firmament, whereas the zodiac signs are 30-degree sections of the solar firmament. Now somebody, Rita, I'm sorry, my eyes are not good enough to see these names. So we're going to call you Mrs. A, I think. Lady R says, can we say that the position of the moon nakshatra on a Purnim night is also the position of Earth on that particular day and Sun on the opposite? I don't think so. So do you think that signs are synonymous with houses? It's nothing to do. Can you guys stay on topic? Learn from the book. This is a different style of learning. You guys should get used to it. This is what the first chapter of the book was all about. Instead of coming to the book with your questions, go to the book with your mind open and absorb what the book is giving you. Yes, the signs are synonymous with the houses in the oldest system. All right, now, he's going to give you a nice chapter, chapter 15, saying, like, if you're born with this nakshatra, you should be this kind of a career. He's going to say, however, not exactly the way you're used to hearing it, like, oh, I have the moon in Uttara Bhadrapada, or whatever. He's going to say, if you're born on the day of Uttara Bhadrapada. So you might want to know how to figure out what day you were born on. And it's actually pretty simple. It's the nakshatra that the moon occupied when the sun rose. The sunrise that's previous to your birth. So the sunrise that you're born under. What nakshatra was the moon in when the sun rose? So it's basically going to be the same nakshatra that your moon is in your birth chart. Unless you were born quite late, quite close to the next nakshatra, quite close to the next sunrise, and or with your moon quite close to the beginning of your nakshatra. So it could be the next nakshatra or the nakshatra before the one that your moon is actually in your birth chart. So do a double check. Instead of casting your birth chart for the time of birth, cast it for the time of sunrise at that day and that place where you were born, and see where the moon is then, and then you know for sure what day the nakshatra of your birthday. I would guesstimate in 90 or 85% of the cases it will be the same as the nakshatra of your moon in your birth chart. So here's what he says. We'll start, right? And we'll try to figure out. I think what you get mostly from this chapter is an interesting insight into what Varahamihira thinks each nakshatra signifies. So, for example, he says, those who are born on the lunar day of Krittika, he starts the list from Krittika, will love white flowers. It's because, will perform sacrificial rites, will be skilled magicians and metaphysicians, will be diggers, barbers, brahmins, potters, priests, or astronomers. So a very important footnote on this is the word or is not and. Because it's very difficult to be a digger and a barber and a brahmin at the same time. So these are different possible career paths for a person born on the day of Krittika. So let's talk about why. Why a white flower? And so the things, I'll group them into the things that I have in common. Sacrificial rites, the color white, even magic, and potters, and perhaps to some extent astronomers, all have the thing in common of they are fiery or bright. They deal with brightness. The whiteness is the color for Krittika, a very bright, hot white. Sacrificial rites, because Krittika is Agni. Agni is fire, the god of fire. Agni is the is the essence of every sacrificial rite of a certain category. The primary category of sacrificial rites in the Vedas, ceremonial rites, are Agni-based, fire-based. So people who are good with fire will work good with a lot of types of magic, electricity, technology. These days you might say technology instead of magic. People working with computers and so forth. People who work with fires in some way, so they could be the people performing rituals. Now, then why diggers? Because Krittika, because it's fire, what fire does is it breaks things. Fire breaks the outer shell of the thing and then releases the inner spirit or potential energy in it. So Krittika has the signification of cutting. That's, even the English word cut probably comes from crit. So if you're born on the day of Krittika, then you're good with cutting things. So that can also be why you're good with flowers. That could be why you're good with digging, barbers, cutting hair. Then he says Brahmins, metaphysicians, astronomers, priests are good with Krittika. Why? Because cutting has to do with understanding things, breaking things down, being able to digest things. And the digestion occurs not just in the stomach. There's a certain Agni in the fire. There's a certain Agni in the stomach. There's a certain Agni in a match or in a forest fire. That's the simplest Agni. There's another kind of Agni that burns in acids, and that's in your stomach. And there's another kind of Agni that burns in water, and that's in the clouds. That's lightning or electricity. And then there's another kind of, the fourth and final kind of Agni, category of Agni, is the fire that burns in your nerves, your nervous system, the chemical impulses in your nervous system. And so those who are born in Krittika are good with Agni. So one thing they can be good at is understanding things quickly or understanding things sharply or breaking things down. So they could be good intellectuals. That's what a Brahmana means. Priest means they do a lot of studying. Astronomer, they do a lot of studying. Metaphysicians, they're a philosopher. All right, any question about Krittika? I'm not going to follow up on anything that I feel is too speculative or something. Bardo is confused, he says. Will Parashar's light calculate this for you? Actually, Parashar's light will. What you need to do in Parashar's light is maybe find a screen that already exists, or just go to a blank screen, click on one of the areas of the screen, and in the column that comes up on the left where you choose what kind of thing to show, you go scroll all the way down, I think all the way literally down to the end of the list, and you'll find Indian calendar. However, when you do the Indian calendar, make sure that you change your calculation options to Lahiri instead of tropical, because it's a nakshatra-based calculation. And then change it back when you go to look at your chart. But it's very simple, Bardo. It's just whatever nakshatra your moon is in your birth chart, it's probably your nakshatra, the nakshatra of the day you were born. Maybe it's not. If you want to double check, like if you have cause to double check, it would be because you were born late or like very close to sunrise, coming up to sunrise, or because your moon is really close to the beginning of that nakshatra, or maybe even close to the end, close to the border. If you have cause to check like that, then just make a chart for the sunrise on your day and see where the thing is, see where the moon is. Tini says, if you don't have planets in something, can you still have that energy available to you? Yeah, I talked about that. I have a whole video about that on my YouTube channel. Look up why you resonate with things that aren't in your chart. Master K wants to know if I'm going to go through all the nakshatras. I'm just going to follow the book. That's what I'm telling you guys to do, is just follow the book. Listen to the book. The book has all the nakshatras in the chapters, so I'm going to do that. We're studying the book. Sun and Krittika is a double whammy. It's very good, actually. Yeah, it's a double whammy. Pretty much in a good way. All right. Next one is Rohini. So if you're born on the day of Rohini, and actually, who is born on the day of Rohini? I think it's me. Those who are born on the day of Rohini will be devout, like devoted, merchants, rulers, rich men, yogis, drivers, or men possessed of cows, cattle, and animals of water, farmers, and men possessed of wealth derived from mountain produce. So in other words, there's basic symbols going on here. It's categorized. I mean, you should categorize it. This is what you should do when you try to digest a old astrology text, is you have to try to figure out why the author is saying what he's saying. So the idea in reading a nonfiction book is to try to understand the mind of the author. And the words that are on the pages of the book are your clues to figure that out. So you try to figure out why is he grouping all these apparently diverse things together. What does a yogi have to do with a rich man? What kind of yogi? Why is he talking about cows, cattle, all this stuff? Okay, so let's do that. With Rohini Nakshatra, Rohini is associated with Brahma, first of all, but it's also associated with trees and growth, agriculture. Actually, the word Rohini means the one that makes things grow, that makes things come up, that escalates things, elevates things. So, on that basis, now read this. Okay? Makes things grow. If you make things grow, then you're going to have food, right? And if you have a lot of food, then you can sell it. You're going to have money. This is the basic economy, like we were talking about on Facebook. The modern economy is so crazily non-natural. It's so crazily complicated that something like a coronavirus throws it into complete disorder. But a simple agriculture is much easier to manage, even when you have to shut down the economy for 3 months or 4 months. It's not a big deal. But in a simple economy, it's like you get food, you have extra food, you sell it. Or if you can't get food, you make something else that the people who have food want. And then you trade it with them. So basically the way to be rich is to have food. And that's why Rohini is associated with richness, rich people. Wealth. Because agriculture equals wealth. He's got this thing here of a driver. Like, what does he mean? A cab driver or something? Driver. Rohini is signified by the farm, the trees, the farm, the things that grow. So one of the symbols for Rohini is the cart. When you're a farmer, you use carts all the time. Because you collect your vegetables and you stick them on a cart. And then you drive the cart into town. And you sell your vegetables. So, people that are transporting things. So Rohini is also good for people that will be involved in transportation. So basically, if you break down this verse and digest this verse, he's saying, Rohini, if you're born on the day of Rohini, good careers for you would be things that have to do with agriculture or finance, which is the modern extension, or any extension of agriculture and finance, or transportation. And then the other things that he talks on are, you might be a yogi, or you might be a lover. So the lover thing of Rohini is super passionate. It's a red star, and Rohini means aroused. It means brought up, right? Or shall we say erected? Brought up, erected, aroused. That's what the word Rohini means. So it means to be passionate, to have a strong libido, to have a strong emotion, to have a lot of feeling is Rohini. And that's why it's considered a creative nakshatra, because it's passionate. It's got a lot of growth in it, etc. Also, agriculture is just a symbol of sexuality as well, because it's productive of things. So typically, what he means here by translated as devout men is careers that have to do with emotion and love. So like singing, painting, things where you're expressing emotion, showing emotion. If you're born on the day of Rohini, it's good for you. And then yogi. Why yogi is mixed in with all these? Yogi is mixed in with agriculture, finance, transport, and emotion. Careers involving emotion and expression, careers involving transport, careers involving agriculture, and then all of a sudden careers involving yoga. Now, what kind of yogi? There's so many different kinds of yogis. So the best one would be one that has to do with some of these other things of Krittika. So either a karma yogi or a bhakti yogi would be the kind of yogi that Rohini represents, not a Jnana yogi, the third type. Because a Jnana yogi has no passion. The Jnana yogi is dispassionate. The renunciate who sits in the forest, etc., is not a Rohini renunciate. Because Rohini is too much about devotion. But the most ideal, because Rohini has a lot to do with wealth, then any yoga that's about how you use your wealth and how you use your energy, what kind of activities you perform and how you benefit society, those are good yogas to do for people with Rohini. So karma yoga is a good thing to do if you're born on the day of Rohini, or bhakti yoga, because it's all about how you feel, your feelings, your emotion. Any questions about Rohini? Somebody noted that there's many celebrities with Rohini Nakshatra. Reza. So yeah, definitely, because a lot of celebrities are in the entertainment industry. Entertainment industry is all about showing your emotion. Also, Rohini will be an attractive nakshatra because Rohini is an attractive yoga because attraction means people get attracted to like things. So the way to be attractive actually is to show emotion. All the different facial movements of flirting and all that stuff is different kinds of shows of emotion, and because what that does is it pulls the emotion out of the other person and it connects it to you. So the Rohini people will be attractive, famous, things like that. Kundalini is fire energy too, right? I'm not sure. I guess it could be the Indragni. Yes. Any questions over here? Kriya Yoga? What is Kriya Yoga? Kriya Yoga is the thing with Yukteswar and those guys? I don't even know what that is. That's the breathing exercises and things. And that's more like a weird modern combo of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So it's have some amount of Rohini in it, but it's got some smattering of other nakshatras like Ardra. All right, let's move on. Oh, okay, so we're done for today. So tomorrow we will start up with Mrigashirsha. This is cool. I like this part. Tomorrow we'll start with Mrigashirsha. Now, we are going to switch over to do Bhagavatam. So stick around for the Bhagavatam. Now we're going to hear about Narada Muni's previous life and how he was able to remember it, even though it was in a different cosmic cycle than the one that he is Narada Muni in. And how he died and all those things in his previous life. We're going to hear about that now in Bhagavatam. So if you're on YouTube, just stick around for a few minutes till that stream pops up. And if you're on Facebook, it's going to be on a different page. I have a page called Vraja Kishore. Maybe somebody could link it somewhere. I'll go over there. Okay, great. Thank you.